Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Well, welcome everybody to the Must Read Alaska Show. I'm your host, John Quick, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We've got a special guest today, Senator Myers. But before we go into that, I want to thank our show sponsor, Gungerstein for Senate, for sponsoring the Must Read Alaska Show. It's because of her sponsorship that we're able to spread conservative news through all the nooks and crannies of Alaska, and we are very stoked about that. For those of you that don't know, we do have a Must Read Alaska app. If you go to the Google Play Store or the Apple Store on your phone and literally just type in Must Read Alaska, our app will pop up number one. You can download that for free, folks. We've put a lot of time, money, and effort into that just for you. And if you like it, or if maybe you're listening, you've downloaded it a year ago and you've been using it for a year, make sure to give us a 5-star review on iTunes or the Google Play Store. It really helps us out. And if you've enjoyed this podcast over the last, I think, almost 2 years now, make sure to leave us a review as well. That helps out. So without further ado, I want to welcome Senator Myers to the Must Read Alaska Show. Welcome.
Morning, John.
How you doing today?
Been a long night. I'm at work. I'm up in Prudhoe right now. I just delivered a load. I'm going to head to bed here shortly.
Nice. Well, I love, for folks that are listening on iTunes or Spotify, the senator is literally in his truck right now, which is awesome. He's a trucker by day, senator by night, and it's pretty awesome to have somebody in the working class represent folks in Alaska. I think there needs to be more of that in Alaska. So, Senator, how did you first get involved in politics? I know that you took somebody off the chopping block that had been there for a long, long time, but where did you first get involved in politics and what made you decide to run for senator?
So I've been interested in politics for a long time. I was the annoying kid in high school that got into the political debates, outside of class time and stuff, occasionally during class time. But I really got more enmeshed in it when I was in college. I did the university internship program. And so I interned with Representative Peggy Wilson, who was representing part of Southeast. She was out of Wrangell, also represented Sitka and Petersburg while she was down there. And learned a lot from her. So that really kind of gave me the bug. Got out of college, tried to get into politics a little bit more closely with some campaigns and stuff. Nothing really stuck. So I got into just getting a career, and I got married and had kids. And then, with the budget crisis and everything else that we've been facing the last few years, at first I thought, okay, a lot of this is Governor Walker's fault. We'll figure something out after we changed governors in 2018. And then he left office, and then we had more of the same. And I decided that it was time for a new face in Juneau. I was not happy with what I was seeing out of my senator at the time, and kind of had a couple of long talks with my wife about it, and thought about it for a long time, and threw my hat in the ring.
Nice. Well, for folks that are listening, I got Senator Myers here, and there's many folks that are just kind of stay in their bubble. So tell a little bit about what your district is, who you represent, where it's at, for folks that are listening and don't know.
Sure. So I have been representing District B. I live in North Pole. It covers North Pole, about half of Badger Road, and then the old district included kind of North Fairbanks, Farmers Loop, Goldstream, all the way out to Esther, kind of just the north side of Fairbanks. With the new districts, with redistricting going on, I kind of have the east side of town of the borough now. So I still have that North Pole, Badger Road area, but now I've got I got Farmers Loop. I have everything towards the east of that, all the way up to Fox, out the East Highway. I've got all of Chino Hot Springs Road now, and then I have everything down the Richardson to the edge of the Fairbanks Borough. So Salsha, Eielson, Harding Lake, Birch Lake.
Nice. Well, one of the things I like about you is we often don't find folks, let's say, that are on the transportation committee or chair of the transportation committee that are literally truckers. I mean, you could probably, I guess, count that happening on one hand in all the United States. And so I think that's a blessing in disguise for us Alaskans that we have somebody on that's the chair of the transportation committee that actually understands the day-to-day operations of what it looks to do something in the logistic field. So I think that's pretty awesome. Is there a couple of things that you're proud of your first couple of years that you're able to accomplish? I know that it was tough, for the House and the Senate to kind of work together to get real conservative stuff done, but still the Senate had a majority of Republicans and had a Senate president that was a Republican. Was there anything that stuck out to you in those first couple of years that you were super proud of that you were able to get done?
So for myself in my office, we were able to pass a couple of small bills near the end of the session this year. And of course, even if it's a small bill, it's still an accomplishment to get something across the finish line. So much stuff can get lost near the end. I got a truck going. So much stuff can get kind of lost in the tangle near the end. I was glad we were able to get a couple of pieces across the finish line. As far as bigger policy wins, I was happy to see us get most of the READS Act passed. Excuse me. Again, that was kind of a last minute thing, the last minute maneuverings at the end of session. But I was really happy to see that pass. I think that's something that is a good long-term structural change that can really affect our education system down the road here. And then I think the biggest thing, we always talk about the budget and the PFD and things of that nature. It's the same thing we've been stuck on for the last 6, 7, 8 years now. And I think one of the things that I'm happiest about in that regard, even if things didn't necessarily go the way I wanted completely, is I think we're changing the conversation along those lines. 6 years ago, it was, how do we get through our budget crisis? And we continued to have that question of how do we get through our budget crisis? And I think these last couple of years, partially because of some changes in the legislature, partially because of some of the changes in the different circumstances that we're in, the oil prices coming back and things like that. I think what is starting to happen is people are starting to think, okay, not what do we do this year? How do we make it through? I think people are starting to think a little bit more about what do we want our state to look like in 20 years? What the choices that we're making now that to get through these short-term situations, they have long-term consequences. And I think we're finally starting to think about the long-term consequences and how they're going to affect things, 20, 30, 40 years from now when my kids are the ones that are, out here in these jobs and maybe in politics and stuff.
That's awesome. So one of the things that I was very excited that everybody was able to get through the finish line was the Read by 9 Act. I think that that's just a great piece of legislature that's going to literally help kids read by 9. It's pretty self-explanatory. Could you explain to the folks that are listening, maybe just high-level points on that specific bill? I think it's a really important bill for kids. We have Alaska's got some of the worst reading scores in the whole nation, some of the highest cost in the whole nation, and I think that bills like this might be tough to execute, but I think are also very good to aim for. We got to aim for something, and this puts a target on the wall for us to aim at. So can you explain that bill just a little bit for folks and
Sure.
why it's maybe important for Alaskans?
Sure, absolutely. So the Read by 9 program is something that was created in Florida almost 20 years ago. And to help bring up reading scores, the idea is just you focus in really hard on those first few years of kids learning to read, hoping that that's going to pay dividends down the line, that you'll end up with, for example, less remedial education in high school because you've got the kids the foundation that they need at the beginning. And so Florida put it in first. I think we're up to about 20 states that have done a version of it. Mississippi famously put it in about 2014, and they had been near the bottom like we are in terms of fourth grade reading scores. And they're now about middle of the pack. And so I'm hoping that in 3 or 4 years, we can be somewhere in the same neighborhood. And the idea is you do a couple of years of fairly intensive testing. It's not high stakes testing in terms of failing the kids, but the point is to find the kids that need the intervention, find the teachers that are having a harder time with it. You hire reading specialists to go into those classrooms where certain teachers are having some harder times, and yeah, just bring everybody up to the grade level where they need to be so that they've got that foundation as they move forward in school.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with trying to get kids to read at an earlier age. So kudos for working on that. I think that is a very important bill, and I'm excited to see the fruits of that bill down the road. Like you said, Mississippi, for folks that are listening, just go Google Mississippi and Read by 9 Act. You'll see that they were literally at the bottom, and they hovered back to the middle, maybe a little bit more towards the top in a matter of a couple of years, which is a pretty big accomplishment, and I hope we do the same. So what are you going to work on the next couple years, or maybe the next year? I know you have an election coming up, so after you win, what's some of your things that you're going to be working on this next year and hope to accomplish?
Well, so these last couple of years, in a lot of ways, we're just kind of getting my feet wet. We ran a couple of smaller bills, so now we've got a couple small ones that we're thinking about. To some extent, we're kind of waiting to see how things shake out in an organization to see which bills it's worth putting in. But one that I really am hopeful for, that we spent a lot of time on this year, since I'm the transportation chair, we're putting together a reform bill for the marine highway system. And the idea is to put the marine highway system into a corporation, and that gives them their own governance structure so that they're not getting jerked around by DOT every couple of years as we bring in new governors and new DOT commissioners who all have a different vision. We give them some continuity there. We change the funding. Instead of it just being, whatever the legislature decides to give them, we're going to try to give them a contract so that they can plan farther ahead and figure out, what they need to do in terms of not just their operations, but in terms of their vessel maintenance and vessel replacement, and solve, kind of the long-term structural issues. We want to get them off of this yo-yo, this roller coaster that they've been on for a number of years, and give them some long-term stability, a little bit more business planning, a little less politics. Well,
that sounds like that's going to be quite the task to tackle. I think that that's much needed, though. I look at, as you say that, one of the things I look at as a good example of trying to accomplish kind of what you just described is the Alaska Mental Health Trust. I think that they've been a shining light of what do you look like as they don't even call themselves a government organization, even though they're kind of a quasi-government organization, but they're self-sustaining. They sell land to pay for their budget, and they just do that every year. So I think that the model that you're going for would be awesome, and I think it's going to come, as you know, with some loud people on both ends of the spectrum. So much luck to you as you try to tackle that. That's going to be quite the interesting feat if you were able to accomplish that. So, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we put together a bill and put it on the table, and we had 8 hearings in the Transportation Committee this last year, and the idea was to put it out on the table, get people talking about it, amend the bill so that it's something that is a good product now, and we can use what we finished with last year to start this coming year and try to push it forward. Last year was just getting it out in the open and seeing who was interested in it. I've got Jesse Keel on the Transportation Committee. He represents Juneau, and he was a big help in this one. And of course, he's much more interested in much more involved in the ferry system than I am, because it affects his communities. But that's part of the reason I wanted to tackle it, is because I don't have a vested interest. I have a vested interest in solving problems, but it's not nearly so emotional.
You're not using the ferry system in the North Pole.
Not so much. No, it doesn't quite make it up that far.
So one of the things you started your political career beating Coghill, which is, he'd been there forever, and most people that know him as a very nice person, Christian guy. And how the heck did you manage to beat him? Because he is like a juggernaut. If somebody would have said 3 years ago, who's
institution,
one of the top people that you're never going to lose, he would be at the very top of the list. And you just seem to come out of nowhere and just be like a normal person, which I think helped you win, and talked about normal things that people care about, and you ended up winning. But tell the listeners a little bit about how you did that, because I think it gives people hope, because there's a lot of folks in their districts, in their communities, in their boroughs that are like, I'm not qualified. I don't know how to do this. I just, I manage this, or I manage that, or I've never been in politics, or whatever the excuse may be. And you help kill a lot of those barriers overnight, I think, for a lot of folks that are wondering if and when they should run. So give us a little rundown on how the heck that happened.
So going into it, I knew a couple of things. One was, I knew that there were a lot of people unhappy with him. So all I had to do was put my name on the ballot. I'd get 20% of a protest vote. So then the question is, how do you get it from 20 to 50? I also knew I wasn't going to raise a lot of money because, he's the name. He's been there for a while. He's been doing this. I'm brand new at this. I'd been around a couple of campaigns, so I kind of knew the work level of what I was getting into, but I didn't know all the organization. I obviously didn't have the contacts along those lines. And so I knew I wasn't going to raise much money. I raised $6,000 before the primary. He had 50.
Wow.
And so I knew that I was going to have to do things on the cheap. And my biggest goal was to get my name out there and to show people that I wasn't just, an angry crank. Because we get those in Fairbanks, people that are just, mad at the system, and they put their name on the ballot and they don't know what they're doing. And then we get some people that, they know what they're doing, and it's how do you weed those guys out? So I knew I needed to start knocking on doors and just start talking to people, let them know what my ideas were. And then about 3 months after I declared, COVID hit, and so people didn't want you on their doorsteps. That got a little harder. So I turned to a lot of social media, just Facebook. I don't have a Twitter account, but I did a lot of posting on Facebook and used kind of my friends network to help push some of those posts out to get myself some name recognition. And as things got warmer in the summer, I did some video clips and stuff, put those out on Facebook. And then I think one of the biggest things that really helps me was District 3 at the time, now 33, the North Pole area. They hadn't had a primary for either the Senate or the House in 20 years. And so they put together this event of a debate between myself and Senator Coghill, and I set up to video that. And I went into that thinking, all right, I just need to show that I am a serious candidate, that I know what I'm talking about. And if I come out as a draw, I'll call that a win. And we went into that debate, and I think I did fairly well. And people weren't really happy with Senator Coghill's answers. And so I was able to take that debate, put it out on Facebook. I took some of the clips out of it.
I ended up seeing that video. It was a good video.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
I took some of the clips out of it. I put it on my website. Was able to spread a lot of those around. And between that and the knocking on doors, I barely eked out a win. Just barely, by all of 14 votes. But
Wow.
Yeah, as you said, it's still possible for somebody to come out of nowhere. You have somebody that you just have to have somebody that knows what they're talking about, that's studied up on the issues, and yeah, it's still possible to come out of nowhere and get involved in this stuff.
Well, for folks that are listening, he just gave the formula on how you knock somebody off the chopping block. And, in all seriousness, we get messages all the time on Must Read Alaska. How do I make a difference? I'd run, but this person's been there for so long, I'll never win. You are literally the walking example of step in the ring and just give it a try, because he raised 50,000, you raised 6. He had probably all the big name people around town cutting checks, and you had your friends and a camera on Facebook, and man, you beat him by 14 votes. So kudos to you. I think that's inspiring for a lot of folks that are out there wondering, should I even try? And I think the answer is yes, you should try. So the next question is this: how does somebody make a difference in this political world today? You have polarization on both sides of the table. The Republicans, not necessarily in the Senate because they were able to get along, but definitely in the House, it's like they couldn't do anything besides agree on maybe the fact that the color of that chair was blue. And it just seems like a stalemate. Nobody wants to talk to each other. Nobody wants to accomplish anything. Even if you all are, even in the Senate, if you all are working together, the perception is from the outside that nobody wants to get anything done. How does somebody make a difference in the political world today? I think it's a very sometimes frustrating situation people find themselves in, and they find their elected officials in. So somebody that's listening, that's a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad or a soccer mom or a soccer dad's got 2 jobs, how do they still make a difference?
So I would say 2 things, really. One is, we tend to focus on everything at the national level, and we get angry about that. And, whatever Congress is doing, or the Supreme Court, or President Biden or whatever. And it's really easy to get angry at that stuff. But there's not much that you or I, as average Alaskans, average citizens, are going to be able to do about that. I would say step one is focus on the local level. Focus on your city council, your borough, and to some extent the state, because this is still a small enough state that we really are in a lot of ways just one big community. And focus on those smaller areas where it's easier to get your neighbors together and talk to them and say, hey, we need to fix some problems here and get things together. The other thing I would say is really examine your principles and what you want to get accomplished. It's easy to get mad about something and say this is wrong. It's harder to say this is what we need to do to fix it. As Republicans, as conservatives, in a lot of ways, what we have, where our ideology kind of solidified was back during the Reagan years. And I loved a lot of the things that President Reagan said and did, but this is not necessarily the 1980s anymore. Some circumstances have changed. Our principles shouldn't change, but our policies need to reflect both our principles and our circumstances. And so some of those have to change. And so I think we need to look at ourselves and look at each other and go, we're conservatives. These are our principles. Is what we're doing, looking back at the 1980s or something like that, still going to work? Or do we need to do something a little different and actually examine, get some concrete examples of where we're actually trying to go, what we're actually trying to accomplish, rather than just getting mad about how messed up things are.
I like it. One of my mentors a number of years ago told me, you have an opportunity to do 2 things in life: to create a solution or complain about the problem. And I think that oftentimes, sadly, it's easier just to complain about something and move on. But the only thing that's going to make a difference, whether it's you're upset with your city, your borough, your service area, the list goes on, help create a solution. There's always, like here in the Kenai Peninsula Borough, the mayor's got, 7 different service areas. People could serve on those boards. cities have community boards that people can serve on. There's so many different opportunities for folks to get involved rather than just to go off on Facebook. So I want to encourage folks with what you just encouraged them to do is get in the game and help find a solution. It doesn't mean you lose your passion or, you always have to be high-fiving and kissing butterflies. It just means that you're working towards a solution instead of just always pointing out the negative stuff. So kudos to you for having that thought. So you're running for re-election. I think every senator except for one is running because of the census and the redistricting. For folks that are wanting to get involved in your campaign, maybe they want to volunteer, maybe they want to ask you questions because they just moved to the North Pole, or they want to cut you a big old fat check. How does somebody find you and get involved in your campaign?
So 2 places. If you want to contact us, you can find my Facebook page. That's look for Myers for Alaska, MYERS for Alaska, and that's got links to the website and email, or you can message us over Facebook. And then the website, myersforalaska.com, that's got the links for donations. We can take PayPal or credit card over there as well. But yeah, if somebody wants to, hold signs or wants to go out knocking on doors, we're kind of going through the fundraising phase right now. We'll be gearing up through the active campaign phase here pretty soon. So we'll be needing some volunteers. It's a little weird this year with the whole jungle primary thing. A couple of years ago it was, July and first half of August. You needed to get out there and get campaigning real hard because that was the primary. And now it's, well, I'm not sure how much the primary counts now because we've got 3 of us, so we all know we're already making it all the way to November. But we're for to some extent in September, definitely in October, we're going to need to get out there, knock on doors. If people are in the district and are willing to hold an event, because a couple of the more far-flung areas, I won't be knocking on doors. I'll be trying to hold events in central locations instead. Then I'd love to hear have some people volunteer their homes or their business if they've got a large area where we can gather people together. So yeah, plenty of ways to get involved.
Nice. What if somebody lives in your district and you're currently the elected senator? If they have a constituent question or emergency, how does somebody get a hold of your office?
So my office, you can email me sen.robert.myers@akleg.gov, or you can call the office number. Let's go with 465-3179.
Nice. That's impressive. You were able to remember it.
That's actually the Juneau number, but it's forwarded to the Fairbanks office right now. I do have 2 staff members still working for me right now, and we're still fielding constituent questions over the interim. Whether you've got a problem with dealing with a state agency, or you've got a question about a law you think needs to get changed, something along these lines. Give the office a call or give me an email. The bigger the issue, the better it is to have an email, because then we've got a paper trail and we've got all the details in one place, so we can help try to track things down.
Nice. Well, Senator, any other last thoughts or words before we head off here? The floor is yours. Anything you'd missed that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I just say thanks for having me on today, John. I'm happy to be here, and happy to be running again. And I'm very grateful for the support that I got 2 years ago in the primary and the general to put me where I am now. And I hope that I've earned everybody's trust with my actions over the last couple of years, and I hope I've earned your vote again for this year.
Well, I can tell you that our folks like you, so I think you're going to have some success there getting reelected, and we wish you nothing but success here at Must Read Alaska in your bid for reelection. And let's have you back on when you're working on that ferry bill. I think that's very interesting and exciting, and a much needed solution to issue that hasn't seemed to have a good solution to it for years. So thanks for coming on the Must Read Alaska show. Really appreciate it. And we want to thank our show sponsor, Gungerstein for Senate, for sponsoring the Must Read Alaska show. It's because of her sponsorship that we're able to get conservative news through all the nooks and crannies of Alaska. You can go check her campaign out. She's running for U.S. Senate. She's a nonpartisan candidate, and she's pro-energy and has a couple of things to say about Joe Biden. She was on our podcast and was taking some pot shots at him, which I always love. So until next time, from somewhere in Alaska, I'm John Quick, and we'll see you next time. Hope you have an awesome and wonderful weekend, everybody.